So it is Monday, the 17th of October, 2022, and it's 8:30 p.m. And this is episode 24 of Part of My Journey. This is my mental health talk show where I speak to mainly DJs, but also other people. We've had comedians and we've had other people on here. We discuss various aspects of mental health. We discuss DJing, we discuss 45s, we discuss vinyl culture, all sorts of things like that. And this time around, I've got a very special guest all the way from Scotland. He's someone who I have been a fan of for some time. And one of the cover versions that I play quite a lot is Love Will Tear Us Apart. He produced featuring L16. But I bumped into him when I was last in Edinburgh for We Love Sevens on the Sunday. He was doing a brilliant reggae set at Superico. And we got chatting and discussed sort of mental health and things like that. And I've invited him on my show. And here he is. So it's Dave Dble Twelv, aka Capital1212. How you doing, Dave?
Good.
It's great to see you. Like I say, it seems a long time ago. It was only probably about 2 months ago or something like that.
It does feel like a while. Yeah.
Seem a while. But yeah, have you been since we saw you? All good?
Good. Yeah. Keeping well, keeping busy. Yeah.
That's good to hear. Yeah, but busy is good. Busy is good.
Yeah.
It keeps obviously we're talking about mental health, and I think one of the things I've found is keeping busy and having that next thing to sort of look forward to.
Yeah.
It tries to keep you on some sort of path and stops your mind wandering too much. But we'll get to that sort of side of things in a minute. But I always ask my guests, because I'm interested as to how they first got into music, because for pretty much all my guests, music is a massive passion. And so, as far as you're concerned, was it friends, family, parents, siblings? Who was it who first got you into music, and what sort of music were you sort of listening to at a young age?
Yeah. It was probably a wee bit of a mixture of everybody actually. Older brother, older siblings are always a good route into discovering music, isn't it? Even through my dad's record collection as well. Actually, getting into quite a bit of music through him. And just kind of. I suppose there was a lot more stuff on TV back then, wasn't there? There was a lot more music shows on the four channels we had, so it's just catching things on TV. Like I think I was quite young when I mean, don't get me wrong, I bought a lot of rubbish records like when I was younger, but there was a few things that. Yeah, we'll maybe skip past that, but I remember seeing James Brown like doing "Try Me" late on Apollo, late night at the Apollo.
Oh yeah.
My brother used to stay up and watch that. I think it was on Channel 4, maybe like at 2 a.m. or something. So I remember seeing him do that, and that kind of got me into James Brown at quite a young age, actually. But strange enough, it was all the slow ballads that I really liked when I was younger by James Brown. Yeah, and then got into the funk later on, but yeah.
I mean, you mentioned your dad's record collection. I mean, what sort of stuff was he into, and was it vinyl or what did he have?
No, it wasn't so much vinyl. I suppose going back then, it was probably more tapes back then, actually. Okay. Tapes in the car. Weirdly, like a lot of soundtracks, actually.
Really? Okay, that's interesting.
Like a lot of sort of sci-fi soundtracks, all this John Carpenter and stuff like that. It was a lot of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I remember I was listening to that soundtrack, and I think I've gone and bought most of these soundtracks now on vinyl over the years. Like so it's a lot mainly soundtrack stuff, and then a lot of sort of there was some soul stuff and 60s stuff and things like that as well.
That's quite an interesting mix. I'm just going to pause for a second and say hello to a few people. We've got Scotty Boy from Edinburgh. We've got Twitch Witch, one of my main mods. Hello, Twitch Witch. We've got Nick Goodlife from Glasgow. I don't know if you know. Do you know Nick?
Nick.
Yeah, you know Nick.
Okay. Hello, crew.
Yeah. So we've got probably more Scottish people in this room than normal. But it's all good. I've had a great time whenever I've come up to Scotland, so it's all been good. And big shout out to Nick because she organised an event that we went to with Ouija. But it's all good. So yeah, soundtracks interesting. So he'd be driving along in his car, and you'd have tapes of John Carpenter and all these sort of soundtracks.
Listening to the Fog. Listen to the Fog soundtrack on a holiday for 3 hours.
Yeah, but for a young kid though, I mean, it's the sounds and the atmospheres and the textures in all of that. It's interesting stuff, isn't it? Really. Yeah. And I guess if you're going to hear it anyway, you might as well be forced to hear it and enjoy it rather than sort of never finding it or never listening to it.
exactly.
Cool. Okay, so that's the sort of how you first got into the music. Where did that sort of lead into? Because obviously I know you got into DJing. So when did you first get into DJing? And at that time, what sort of music were you sort of DJing?
It would probably be more hip hop, actually. Yeah, it was.
Okay.
I think it was probably actually Run DMC.
Yep.
Yeah, and seen Jam Master Jay doing Mary Mary, scratching
Okay.
Mary
Yeah. Yeah.
Mary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and trying to replicate that, and that was when I first got decks. Actually, was after hearing that song. Actually, yeah. So it was probably more hip hop. Actually, I was buying with my first set of decks, and yeah.
And were you lucky enough to have some decent decks, or were you sort of on the belt drives like most people?
Yeah, those belt drives, and yeah.
And
Wondering why everything sounded so bad, and just yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's interesting that every time I speak to someone, it's not quite the same story, but obviously it's the same sort of things. Everyone's sort of been brought up on belt drives, and then they've tried to emulate other DJs or whatever that they've seen,
Yeah.
but it's not that. So the hip hop, so largely US sort of hip hop stuff that you're into then.
Yeah, it probably would have been actually. Yeah. It would have been. Yeah.
Probably wouldn't have been too much. There would have been some underground UK stuff probably at that sort of time, but probably not too
Yeah,
much
I think
available.
yeah. Some of it probably went over my head when I first got into it. You could say like it was more people like Public Enemy and things like that. Actually,
Yep.
Public Enemy really, it was like overnight. All the wrestling posters on my walls came down, and Public Enemy posters went up instead. Like it was,
It's amazing how much of an impact Public Enemy have had, because so many guests come on here, and not all of them, but pretty much 9 out of 10 of them will name check Public Enemy as being a major influence. It's probably because we're all of a certain age, but it's still amazing that one band has made such a lasting impact on everyone.
Yeah, it was just something. It was just something completely different. The music was just, the music, the message, everything was just new to me that I'd heard. It was just it just kind of blew your mind kind of when you first heard it.
Exactly. We've got Nick saying that you invited her to play her first DJ gig in Edinburgh.
That's right.
15
I
years
forgot.
ago.
I forgot that actually. Yeah, Vapors. That's right. Yeah,
And that was at
Vapors. Yeah,
Vapors. So,
yeah. I think it was.
So there you go. You kick-started Nick Goodlife's DJ career.
Yeah. In fact, I think it was in one of the most haunted pubs in Edinburgh.
Really?
Clubs in Edinburgh that we did it in actually. And if I remember right, it might have been that night near the end of the night. There was a power cut,
right.
And I had to walk through the old vaults and this underground most haunted pub in Edinburgh in Scotland, maybe I think it is, and try and find the managers to try and get paid.
Brilliant. Yeah, he'd done it probably deliberately so you couldn't find him.
I think so, probably.
It's a little trick. Yeah. Oh, switch the power off. Oh, I can't pay you. See you later.
Yeah, exactly.
Bless him. Cool. Okay, so we've talked about Nick's first DJ gig. What was your first DJ gig? Where did you first play?
I think I played a few gigs in a row. Must have been about 16, I think. 16.
Okay.
I think I played in a kind of, because I'm from up north originally, Inverness way. So I think I played in a pub with some bands that were playing from school as well. Like and I was playing some like hip hop and stuff. Like it's interesting actually because when I've got a record that I still remember playing on that night. And like there's candle wax over it because I think I knocked a candle over on top of it. I still play that record actually now, like, and it's still got all that. And that was when I was 16, and I'm 44 now, so it was a while ago. But and then I ended up playing a couple more kind of a couple raves after that actually. I think the one after that I was playing at like it was kind of more of an acid house rave, and I was playing some like sort of hip hop and bits of jungle, I think it was maybe before at the start of the night. But I just remember getting the police came in and raided it, and I remember getting put out into the fire escape.
Right.
Because I was too young to be in there, and the record was just running out. It was going to run out.
Right.
And by the time I got taken back in when the police had gone, there was some guy just off his head like who had taken over DJing, like, and he was doing a much better job than I was.
Right.
The whole place was just like going crazy for him and stuff, like, and then I went back on and it completely bombed. Like, I was like, yeah, so it was
they're the worst, aren't they? Where you've got to go on after someone who's completely killing it, and then you never know what's going to happen.
Especially when he was completely melted as well. It wasn't the best
Yeah.
thing, but I do remember that one because it was a really busy one. I think it was the second gig I did, and it was a fair few hundred people there, and it was I was quite young. I do remember that thing of trying to put the needle on the record and your hands shaking, and it's just not going down but yeah.
Definitely. So did that sort of lead into sort of some bigger gigs after that then? So that was sort of the start of your career.
Yeah,
sort of led into bigger stuff?
not so much actually. There wasn't because I didn't really live in sort of one of the bigger cities. Like there wasn't that many opportunities really. So we put on quite a few of our own nights in like pubs and local venues and things like that. They were great fun, really good times. But what ended up happening was I ended up making mixtapes more.
Yeah.
And I ended up somehow, I'm not even quite sure how it came about really, but I ended up selling those mixtapes in record shops like down in London and and elsewhere, and in Glasgow, and then also like in San Francisco and LA and places.
Wow.
And the mixtapes kept selling out everywhere. But yeah, I wasn't really getting any gigs back home, or nobody knew who I was at all back home. And that kind of continued for quite some time, actually. So I kind of ended up doing that rather than kind of playing out. It was more doing more mixtapes.
Yeah. Just say like to a couple more people we've got in. We've got Paul Sitter, we've got Double P, and Madge Canute. I don't know if it's someone you know. But, yeah, maybe someone you know.
Probably. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because that we talk a lot about because again, when people of a certain age, we know what it was like before the internet. And obviously, like you're saying, back then, people didn't know who you were, but you were still getting your mixtapes out sort of across the world in a way. And it'd be interesting to know what it'd be like if we did have the internet back then, and obviously we did have the sort of socials. But it must have been a real hard graft, like you say. You're doing all this work, you're getting these mixtapes out, you're getting a bit of interest, but it's difficult to get the gigs back in because people are so far away, or there certainly wasn't the amount of venues or the amount of festivals and things like that we have now.
Yeah.
So did that eventually sort of take off and eventually get into more gigs?
Yeah, it did actually. I think probably same as quite a lot of people actually. Like it's probably more so when I moved to Edinburgh. Actually, when I moved to Edinburgh, after doing a bit of traveling and things like that, I kind of got to Edinburgh. And, it's kind of once again like it's like you turn up in a city and nobody really knows who you are, so you end up. I end up putting on some of my own nights. Just and that was kind of the way I went and did it, really, just to get bookings. I had to put on myself, and so yeah, and then it kind of just took off from there, DJing, and then I suppose I was lucky as well because Kenny, who is also part of Capitol 1212 with me, he was also running nights at the same time in Edinburgh. He was running drum and bass nights, so we kind of met through that, and that's kind of where the production took off.
Yeah. Because I think it's quite. I mean, I assume it happens in other countries as well, but certainly in the UK, there's very much this DIY culture of right. Well, if you're not going to get booked, just go on and put something on. It's where I've started. It's what lots of DJs started. And in one sense, obviously, it's a pain because you've got to find a venue that's going to take you on, get your system there, or whatever you're going to do. But then again, you can do what you like, pretty much. And you can invite who you want, get your own guests in. And it gets you to know what makes a good night and what makes a good promoter as well, and what's a good structure. So I think although it's a pain to start with, I think it's a good grounding for anyone who wants to be a DJ to just get out there, put on your own event, and sit and see what happens. Because then again, it's the networking, isn't it? I assume once you started doing that, like you say, you nicked up with Kenny. And I assume then that sort of led on to other connections and other sort of networking.
It did, yeah. Because then we started doing the production together, and then I suppose after the production, then came more gigs around the world and things like that, and a lot of opportunities for touring and stuff with different acts, and
Well, tell us a little bit about the production then. So when did you first get into it? And at that time, what was your sort of? I'm always interested in software and hardware and things like that. So when did you first start producing? And at that time, what were you sort of using to produce on?
It was very basic. In fact, the first record we made together actually was on a fairly rubbishy old laptop, and I can't remember. Yeah, you think we used maybe an MPC for some of it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can hardly even remember what software we used or anything. It was fairly rubbish. But it's strangely enough, like when I go back and listen to the first record, though, it's probably one of the records I'm most happy with the overall sound to it, which is, I don't think we even had monitors or anything. Actually, it was just yeah. So yeah, I think would it have been Reason we're using, or would that have been before Reason?
Reason might. Well, I mean, what sort of year? What sort of year are we talking about?
Let me think for that. That would have been about. I can't even think now. About 15 years ago, maybe for.
Yeah, I imagine Reason. Yeah,
Yeah.
was probably. It's amazing because obviously a lot of these doors that have been around, they have been around a long time, much longer than we all think.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. And again, at that time, so obviously you described your first track. What were you making? Was it hip hop?
So I think the first thing we did was we kind of went straight in with it. It's quite strange actually. The first thing we did was I think we mucked about, made a remix of Crooklyn.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. With a cappella, and we made a remix of that, and then it got picked up straight away for like a World Skateboarding Championships video or something like that. So I ended up on a skateboard video, which was pretty cool. And then I think straight after that we made an instrumental track that ended up on a compilation, a Scottish producers compilation, which had like, which is quite funny to look back on it now. Actually, it's got everyone like Crash Slaughter and Hudson Mohawk and Ace Type, and it's got quite a lot of people on it actually when you go back and look at it now. And then straight away we made our first EP, and we got that was with Grandmaster Cars. We got Grandmaster Cars, so we got Donald D from Rhyme Syndicate, and I'm trying to think who else. And then we got some UK MCs as well, Prophecy and a guy called Mikey Crummins from Edinburgh. So and that came out in the Cool Cat Records that were in Helsinki at the time. They were putting out a lot of sort of like a very boom bap kind of hip hop stuff all in vinyl. So that came out in vinyl actually.
Cool. That must be nice getting your first piece of wax as well.
Yeah.
There's something about it. And have you? I know you don't just DJ vinyl, but primarily a vinyl DJ, would you say? Or
I kind of use Serato vinyl. Yeah, I've not really kind of got onto the CDJs or anything. Yeah, actually, but because I play a lot of jungle and stuff out, every jungle event is just CDJs these days. So it's I'm the only person every time that's turning up needing Technics. Like, so I'm going to have to shift. I think I can see promoters' faces just stressed at me every time. Yeah.
Well, I guess because they've normally got sort of four CDJs, don't they? A lot of the times, you mix it and you got 4 CDJs, and then obviously they've now got to squeeze in vinyl decks. It's one of the banes of promoters. I imagine you say I'm the only vinyl DJ, not vinyl, but obviously Serato.
Yeah.
But you haven't moved on to sort of using. I don't know if they do actually. I know certainly with Tractor you can get CD and then use CDJs as timecode. I don't know if Serato does that or not.
Yeah. I think they do actually. Yeah, no, still not done it. I will have to move on to it, but yeah, kind of stuck in the ways.
It's still the feel of a.
It's what you know, isn't it? It's what you're comfortable with. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, exactly. And whenever I use Tractor, it's always DVS, so it's definitely the way to go. Cool. So tell us a little bit about the people you've worked with in terms of MCs, because I think you moved into reggae a little bit later, didn't you? So.
I think that hip hop EP that we were talking about, that kind of came out, but then really quickly after it, we put out a reggae record as well, actually, with and I had some hip hop MCs alongside dancehall MCs as well. At the time, we were going to a few of the sound system shows that were always happening in Edinburgh and Glasgow, like Mungo's Hi-Fi, and there was a local crew, Big Toes Hi-Fi as well, and Messenger Sound System in Edinburgh. So it was a lot of the MCs that I was seeing at these events. Actually, I was kind of hunted down and got them all on on our first couple of records, reggae ones. So, and then the hip hop records kind of came at the same time as the reggae ones in a sense. We had follow ups with folks like Ed OG. But we're putting him on tracks alongside kind of up and coming UK MCs at the time, like Mr. Bang On and Cersei and people like that. Yeah. But and then, you know, when that record came out at the same time, we also had a song that was kind of our first kind of bigger record, which was with Tenor Fly, a song called Dawn Man Sound. And it's now been re-released. I don't know how many times over the years since, but with different remixes and things. But so quite kind of. There's been certain MCs we've worked with a lot. There's been Prophecy, who's based in Edinburgh. Cersei, we've worked with him quite a lot as well. So we have worked with a lot of MCs a number of times. Yeah. But,
I'm always interested in how sort of producers and MCs sort of collaborate, because some just send the beats out to the MCs and the MCs records the verse and then they come back. Others sort of sort of work together. What's been your sort of experience? A bit of both, or
a wee bit of both? More so us giving beats and then getting vocals back, and then we'll be chopping vocals or switching things around how we kind of see it in a sense. But then the other way, like you're saying, of doing it of more of a collaboration, definitely that's something that interests me more now. You know, getting in the studio with somebody and actually, you know, doing stuff. Prophecy, who we spoke about, who, you know, was one of our main vocalists and has done a lot with us. You know, quite a number of the songs we did with him, he flipped things. So parts of songs that I had as a verse, he would say, no, that's the beat that we need for the chorus. Let's flip it around. So, you know, he had that producer mind. So, and that was really, really good. But that's kind of, so a wee bit of both, but probably more so us sending out beats. Probably more so just because of geography as well, because a lot of the vocalists we work with are from around the world. Yeah.
And exactly in this day and age, when you can just, you know, within 2 seconds send a beat to someone and you know, depending how quick they are, you might get it back the same day. You know,
exactly. And some are very quick, and some it's like 2 years later, and it's like, you know, I'm like, I've already released the record with a different vocalist on it. I thought you'd given up. You know. That's why you'll see some remixes coming out 2 years later with new vocalists on them. Like,
I mean, it depends on each artist, doesn't it? Like Andy Cooper, he does a lot of stuff with the allergies, and obviously I know that he's very prolific and he's pretty quick. You know, he'll get stuff done, but others aren't. But that's all really interesting. And well, let's jump to, like I said, one of my favourite 45s covers is Love Will Tear Us Apart, you know, with R16. So tell me how that came about. You know, was it something about the particular first song that interested you, or how did that cover come about?
I think we wanted to do a bit of a roots reggae sort of session recording. It was something myself and Kenny both had an interest in. Kind of, we'd released a lot of reggae, but none of it was, how do you say, that kind of sort of purist kind of almost roots style, you know. And we were interested in doing a wee bit of that, so we kind of put it together. We put a couple of weeks aside and started writing songs, and we wrote about 5 or 6 roots songs, like you know, mainly using like kind of, you know, all instruments, guitars, bass, and everything, kind of to get that sound. And then just near the end of it, we thought it would be great. We'd never done a cover version before, and we thought, you know, let's, you know, I'm a bit like what you were saying, like I'm a bit of a sucker for a cover version, you know, like a lot. Yeah, you know. So, you know, we were trying to think which one. And I think in that session, we started doing a cover of, I can't remember what, it was a Special song.
Okay.
And we finished the beat, the rhythm, and then we realized it sounded just like the Special song. It was just identical. You know, and it was just, we thought, well, almost like, what's the point, in a sense, you know. So then we went downstairs from the studio, and we had a curry and a beer, and we're just thinking, let's still try and think of a song that we really want to do. And we actually went through the records. We're at Kenny's, and we went through his record collection, and I think we just pulled it out. Love Will Tear Us Apart. We're like, let's give that a go. And we just wrote it that night, and then we wrote it, and I was trying to think who could sing it. And the one thing I didn't want to do is I didn't want to make it more uplifting than the original.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to make it cheesy or kind of anything else. I kind of thought, if anything, I want to make it a wee bit more melancholy than the original.
Yeah.
You know, kind of make it kind of really kind of credible, you could say. So, and maybe appeal to Joy Division fans as well. You know, so you know, not just the reggae market in a way, you know. So yeah, so we did that, and then I don't know, it just came to me straight away. I thought, and we had never worked with Earl 16. We'd done a few gigs with him, not with him, but on the same bill. So I'd kind of said hello to him. Really, that was it. But just his voice just popped into my head, and I just thought, yeah, that would be perfect. So it kind of came from there. I think I wrote to King Youth, the reggae jungle producer, straight away, and just said, "Oh, do you have a contact for him?" Because I knew they had done a song together, and he hooked me up straight away. And Earl, strangely enough, Earl recorded it and told me he'd never heard the song before.
Wow. Okay.
So he listened to the original and he sang it, but he didn't know the original at all. And then he wrote back to me about 2 weeks later and said that I think it was his partner or a family member had said to him, had said to Earl, "Do you know, Earl, you supported Joy Division?"
No.
And he was like, "Oh, really?" Like, and I think they had pointed out, like, and reminded him of a night that he'd actually played at the same night as Joy Division supporting them, and he kind of pieced it together. He was like, "Oh, right, okay, that song." So yeah, kind of interesting.
That's brilliant. But I guess in one sense, I mean, I'm not a singer, so I don't know, or a songwriter, but I don't know how they work. But I guess in one sense, if you don't know the original that well, you just come to it and like, okay, so these are the lyrics. How am I going to sing this song? And there's not that sort of, well, I've got to change it, or I've got to make it different, or I've got to make it better from the cover. So I guess in that way, it probably helped for him just to just sing it and see how it came out. Yeah. So that's brilliant. Yeah. And then obviously one of the other things I absolutely love about Reggae Sevens is obviously the dub versions on the flip. So I assume you're as big a dub fan as well. So talk me through a little bit in the process. Obviously you've produced. I assume you've got all the stems for your production. And what are you using now, or this sort of time? What are you producing on at the moment?
Kind of using different programs, different ends. It could be Ableton, it could be different. We kind of jump about a wee bit actually, yeah. Okay. So it was Cubase, I think, at that time. Actually, I think we were still using Cubase at that time.
Okay, so you've got your stems, you've got obviously your original. Talk us through, if you can, a little bit about how the dub version comes about. You know, are you playing it live and sort of dropping things in and out? And
it was done with that. Actually, it was, yeah. So we basically, with the original one that we did initially, Mungo's Hi-Fi put it out on their Puffer's Choice compilation.
Yeah.
So it came out on that on vinyl, and then the Happy People Records got in touch and said, could they license it and put out in 7-inch? So it came out with the instrumental on the flip side of it. I don't know if that's the one you've got, but and then really kind of quite quickly after, Don Letts was playing it a lot on the radio. I think he might have put in one of his sort of top tracks of the year on BBC Six, and then Don Letts got in touch and said, could he have it for his compilation that was coming out in Late Night Tales?
Yeah.
So then it came out again on vinyl on there, but they wanted an exclusive version of it.
Yeah.
So, and I think most of the songs on the Late Night Tales album that Don Letts did all were dubs, you could say. More dub versions. So we ended up doing two dub versions to send to Don Letts. And you're right, we did it kind of more live, like that, actually pulling bits of the track in and out. It seems to just flow better like that. And one the dub versions had more vocal and one was more instrumental. And I think that Don Letts chose the more vocal one. So that came out in his compilation. And it came out a really nice package and things, coloured vinyl and stuff again.
Yeah. It's like I think it's a 3 vinyl gatefold, isn't it?
Something it's really nice, and orange and green vinyl and things.
Yeah.
And then just the next thing that's coming out from it, actually, because it's still going, is Happy People Records are putting out again in December on Dinked 7 inches.
And
various colours and things like that. And but it's going to have the other dub version that wasn't released that we did.
Okay, interesting.
So it's going to have like more of an instrumental dub on it, actually. So that, and I think that's all the versions we're sitting on. It will all be released on vinyl then. So
well, because
yeah.
I think from memory, it was a black and maybe a green was the first release on Happy People, and then I think they did a red one, didn't they, or a pinky?
Yeah, I think they did red, pink, and grey after that, and it's is there a turquoise one now or something? I think there's quite. You can get it almost.
It's a brilliant song, you know. I mean, and it's the power of sevens, because you know people sometimes struggle to get 300 sevens sold, but the fact that they're able to sort of release and then re-release and it's still, I mean, it's sold out really quickly,
Yeah, we've been lucky. It's sold out in the pre-orders a lot and stuff. So it's it's kind of quite nice. I think it suits well on a 7-inch. I think it's kind of it's made for a 7-inch. I think, but
yeah, and I think what it is when I play it, there's people, I don't know if you know him, but Sam Tweaks is one of one of our big Twitch 45s DJs, but he's not hugely into reggae. And he says that, and he always jokes about me always playing reggae stuff. But it's one of those songs that sort of cuts through. Even if you're not a reggae fan or a dub fan or anything like that, it's one of those songs that, because you know the original and you know this, it can hit more mainstream listeners.
Yeah,
which I think it's got a lot of power to it, which is
yeah, it was quite interesting. There was quite a few people that played it and stuff on the radio. That was like Bez and Sean Ryder from Happy Mondays played it, and Tim Burgess from the Charlatans, and I think it actually was quite a lot of indie bands that kind of played it at different things. Like I think it was Primal Scream as well. Actually, we're doing a DJ set on the radio and played it, and so it's quite interesting. Like but
that must be great. All those greats sort of just playing your record,
Yeah, I'm a fan of all these people, so it was nice to kind of break through to different people.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let's move on to obviously a little bit more of the serious side of the show. When we met up in Edinburgh back in, I think it was the end of July, wasn't it? We sort of discussed the show, and you said, oh yeah, I'd be interested in coming on. You've worked within mental health, and obviously it would be good to talk about music and mental health. But let's maybe start with music and mental health. So how do you think it's impacted on your musical career and your sort of mental health, and how do you think it impacts on other people's music being such a big part of people's lives?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a dilemma, actually, in a sense, because when I think about if my kids wanted to get into music and doing music, it's a difficult one, actually, because there's so much positive. I mean, even doing this tonight is really positive, and you meet loads of people, and most of my best friends have all come through music, and we'll be best friends long after we stop doing music. So these things are really, really important, it's gone way beyond music, our relationships, and so these things are amazing for people to get into, I think, with music. But I think the other things that come with doing music, though, the insecurities of being an artist, which comes and goes all the way through, really. I think for everyone, really, I think there's very few people that are very secure. If you perform or you're an artist in any way, there's probably moments you're very secure, and then there's moments you're very insecure that brings on, anxiety, and I think, and then there's also the negative things in music as well, like the business side of things. The late, even the late nights and the drinking, and these can all be good. These can all be positive in a way, and be. They can be good for your mental health, when you're having good times with people, but it can also it can take its toll as well over the years, especially if you're touring and things like that. I was always surprised when I was away touring, actually, that sometimes it's not quite what it's cracked up to be, really, especially if you're kind of by yourself in a sense, yeah.
I guess everyone has this vision of DJs and artists, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and all the rest of it, and it's very rarely the reality, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Very rare, isn't it? Actually, yeah. I think there's moments which you're like, I think it's sometimes you're surrounded by people, good people. Things are good, but then sometimes you're quite often by yourself. I suppose you're by yourself with your thoughts about, when you're releasing records, when you're writing records. It's I think the main thing for me is the kind of with music is and for people I know, it is kind of the insecurities that come with it and the anxiety that comes with being an artist. I think, are you still relevant? Are you not relevant? Sometimes you don't care. Sometimes you're not bothered at all. But then sometimes you wake up and you do care.
I think there's always a little element of caring, isn't it?
Yeah.
However much people dismiss it and think, oh, I don't care, I don't give a shit, it doesn't really matter. Deep down, you do want, if you're playing out or if you're DJing or if you're doing a stream, whatever, you do want people to enjoy it. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it, would you?
Exactly.
You just switch the camera off, or not go out and just do it at home, wouldn't you? So,
Mm-hmm.
and it does bring that, and I think I've also found that there's always this expectation of what an event or a gig or a DJ set is going to be like in your mind. You think, oh, it's going to be really busy, or it's going to be really good, or it's going to be this, and it's going to be that, and it very rarely is what you think it's going to be. And that brings with it a lot of doubt, and like, oh, okay, well, maybe I won't do the next one, or maybe I'll do something different on the next one. So I think all that sort of, like you said, it's all the insecurities and the sort of anxiety, so it kicks in for that as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And I think also, it's also that sort of, I don't know what the right term is, maybe like fulfillment, like even when you've got something that's been successful at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I think for a lot of people who do music or perform that, you're always thinking about how can I take this bigger, the next thing, and just never quite content, really. With even with the successes, never quite content, because I think also you're also seeing. I think one of the biggest things that I think goes through kind of music in a sense, and people, it comes out of people in different ways, is actually sometimes jealousy as well. It's and it can be interesting because it can, like for myself, I'm not a jealous person in life at all with anything, but it's, I don't, whether jealous is even the right term, but as you get older, you're always like, you're seeing the next waves of people, and you're like, and you encourage them, and like I try and help people a lot, younger generations with music and things like that, but then the industry is also quite ageist as well, so you're a bit like, oh, wait a minute, I've still got something I can give here. It's these things kind of, it's these things that I think that mess with a lot of people's heads, really, actually. It probably is like, there's a lot of the prejudices in music and in the industry, I think, that affects people, actually. It's probably what I'm trying to get at, actually. It's not jealousy. It's actually probably, it's ageism, it's sexism, racism, it's all these things,
And there's that sort of that saying that comparison is the thief of joy. If you're comparing yourself to someone else, you're always going to go, oh, well, why has that person got more gigs than me, or why is that person selling more records than me, and all the rest of it. And in one sense, it's good to be competitive, and obviously that pushes you, but you're not that person. You're not going to be able to do what that person does, because that person's got whatever they've got, and you've got to try and find your own little niche. And like you say, I think it's sort of what I've been doing with these shows and on Twitch, and we encourage, I don't know if you know, but we've got the 45 Kids, which is basically kids playing 7-inch records, and my daughter's one of them, and we've got lots of kids doing that. And again, it's sort of bringing up the next generation and trying to give them some of our knowledge. Whether they listen to it or not is another matter, but trying to give them some of our knowledge. But again, it's trying to just be yourself. And I think it takes a long time in music or production or anything to get to the point where you can just be happy with what you're doing and think, right, this is what I'm doing. It's going to work. It's not going to work. It's going to get me here, or it's not going to get me here. But it does take a long time to get there, and you've got to fight through all those sort of doubts, haven't you? I think. I think it's definitely things that goes on.
It's an interesting one. I think definitely, something I'm wanting to get into is more management, of younger acts and things like that, because it's, I think, it definitely is. It's very positive, even for my mental health, to help people, like coming up, and sort of try and steer them the right way, you could say, not some of the mistakes I've made, so it's definitely very good. But I think it's an interesting one. I think it's, you find a lot of artists, whether they like it or not, they do have those tendencies in them to be these sort of anxieties, these insecurities, these jealousies, which actually might not be in the rest of their life at all, but when it comes to your art form and your music, and it's it can be there whether you like it or not, actually, and it's something you try and
And I
get rid
think
of.
it's certainly also the sort of world we live in, isn't it? The sort of like social media world. Oh, how many followers have you got, or how many
Yeah,
likes have you got, and how
yeah,
many people have watched this video? And you might put something out that is really popular, and then the next thing bombs. And
yeah.
I think yeah, music is difficult, and I know I can hear exactly what you're saying about whether you're going to get your own kids involved in it.
Mm.
But it's the same with my daughter. I got her into DJing. She might carry it on, she might not. But I'm just saying, look, this is something you might want to do. If you want to do it, you want to do it, and then
Yeah,
just see what happens.
yeah.
But it's interesting. But so management would be good. Is that
Yeah.
something you've already started doing, or is that something
No,
you're
not
looking
yet.
to?
No, but it's definitely something I'm on the lookout and in chats and conversations with a few people about at the moment. Actually, it's yeah, it seems to be a very, as I say, I spend a lot of time listening to people's records, new acts, and
Yeah.
kind of giving pointers and helping people. I've helped quite a few people kind of get signed to deals and stuff like that. And
Cool.
but it's kind of more just taking it to the next step, actually, and kind of seeking out some new artists. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely the way their way to go further forward. There's a DJ who's moved over from Guernsey, DJ One of a Kind, and he put out a post last week, I think, saying anyone interested in some management help or whatever, just as a let's get together, let's do something. And then he said his inbox was sort of flooded, with like lots of people just wanting a bit of help, because it is.
Yeah.
I think collaboration and working together, as opposed to working against each other, is another really important thing in music, and it's one of the things I love. The fact that you can go and collaborate with an MC or an artist, or get someone to do a remix or whatever. And that doesn't happen so much in other sort of careers. I don't think. I think
No.
music's one of those. Certainly, other artistic careers, it does happen. So. Let's go back a little bit, because when we met in Edinburgh, you told me that you'd worked within sort of mental health. So what sort of aspects of that did you do, and how did you find that?
I worked. My first job was with a mental health charity, but it was based within the grounds of a psychiatric hospital.
Right.
And I worked in there, and it was kind of more doing activities and kind of more recreation with folks. Music as well came into that. And then I ended up, I kind of worked for that organisation for a while, and I did, different types of support work in the community, and I ended up managing the activity centre actually in the end, the day centre in the end. So I ended up becoming a manager of that project, and it was great. It was a great experience actually. So yeah, I've kind of dipped in and out of kind of things like that over the years actually as well.
And
Yeah.
when you say sort of music, what sort of stuff were you doing with these?
Doing like hip hop workshops with young people. That was cool. Yeah, and music workshops in general, and recording albums. We recorded albums with while we were there. They taught scratching. We had a deck set up, and it was like it was within a psychiatric hospital, so it was within a sort of institution, you could say. But
what was the reaction? How did they react to sort of the music and being able to sort of do this stuff?
It was quite incredible actually. The younger people, I worked with the younger people's unit, and a lot of the younger males would come along, and they would want to write hip hop songs.
Right.
Okay. And we'd make beats, and we'd do teach scratch, and we'd record the vocals down. And actually, talking to kind of some of the nurses and even doctors round about, the young folks were saying things, talking about their experiences. A lot of time, the experiences that led them to end up being in the psychiatric hospital in the first place. But that was the only time they had actually spoken about it, was in their rhymes and in their lyrics actually. Whereas when asked in an office, in a doctor's office, nothing at all, said. So quite powerful actually. Quite. Even people who were working really closely with young people were learning more about the young person by listening to them rap or by their songs.
Yeah.
Than by what they were saying in the ward. Yeah.
Do you think that's a little bit about because when you're DJing or performing or rapping or anything, it's you, but it's almost like an extended version of you. Do you think the music just gave them the freedom to not necessarily be a different person, but just gave them the freedom to express themselves in a different way? Do you think that's part of it?
I think it must have been actually. Yeah. I think also it'd been hip hop as well actually for younger males at that time as well, compared to, because I did another music group as well, which was more you know, guitars and songs and things like that. And there was no interest by the younger males to come along to that. So that demographic of younger males, it was the hip hop side of it. And yeah, there was something about it that they felt this is fine to do this over hip hop, and and yeah, and maybe the stigma wasn't there so much, actually. Maybe because some of the artists who were listening to were talking about, it was all, we did kind of encourage that about, talk about what's real for you and all these things. And a lot of the artists that they were into were saying the same thing. So, I think it was, they're almost being encouraged by their favorite artists in a sense to, that's how you,
exactly. I mean, obviously, it's like writing, isn't it? They tell you, write about stuff and I guess if you're rapping, if you're rapping about what's going on in your life, it's going to come across as more honest and more real. And I guess, like you say, hearing these other artists talking about maybe not 100% what's totally going on in their lives, but largely stuff that's going on in their lives gave them freedom. So. That's really interesting. Really interesting.
It was good. We also it was quite good because I was still DJing and doing clubs and stuff at the time. Like a lot of touring acts when they were playing Edinburgh, I would try and get them to swing by the hospital and come in and do a wee workshop. So we had quite a few like sort of DMC champions and different vocalists come in, and it was pretty cool for people. And
I guess it's I guess a lot of people who get themselves into difficulties like that feel they're not necessarily worth anything. But then when you've got, like you say, people coming in and spending time with you, which is probably the most important thing, and then getting other people who you might know or aim for or respect to sort of come in, that's got to help you and make you think, actually, maybe my life is worth a bit more. Maybe I can do more with my life. And all really positive though, isn't it? All really positive.
Yeah, very much so. Now, and I still bump into folks, around Edinburgh, and quite a lot of folks have stuck at it and got into music production and everything else, actually. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
And as Double P says, so glad people talk about mental health. It's so important. He's the one who inspired this show. He sent me a message and said that what we were doing with the 45 Kings and streaming had helped him. And then I just said, right, do you want to come and talk about it? And then here we are, 24 episodes further down the line. And I think it's getting, like you say, young males especially talking. Obviously, well, it's always been important, but probably now more than ever, talking about their feelings, because if they can start learning to talk about their feelings from a young age, then that will go through, because life generally gets harder. It doesn't get easier, does it, as you get older. So it's good that you're starting from a young age and sort of encouraging them. And giving them a format to be able to talk about it. Definitely.
It's interesting though, because even back then working with people, it is, that whole thing of you don't necessarily practice what you preach in a sense. It's like I've always been like, talk about your mental health, talk, and everything else. But it's interesting, like when it, I'll put my hand up when it came to myself. I'd probably say I'm 44, but only maybe in the last couple of years, 2-3 years, have I started comfortably talking about my own mental health. Even though I even worked in mental health for years, and I grew up around a lot of sort of family who had, there's a lot of things with mental health issues, but never spoken about. And I could go to a day job and encourage people to talk about things and give all the millions of reasons why it's good to talk about these things. But it's interesting, actually. So if I had started when I was younger, it would certainly helped,
I think it's been, and we've talked about this a lot on the show. And when we had, I think it was Rich Wilson, who was a comedian, and he was talking about his dad, who had basically, been through, a war and whatever, and just never spoken about mental health or ever been that. And even then, so I think he was 70 odd, starting to open up a little bit. And he was like, it's just, hopefully it's getting to the stage where younger and younger people can open up and talk about things. But like you said, it's very true, because I think there's been this stigma in a way. Men are supposed to be strong. We don't have mental health issues. We just, we're there to support families, we're there to support kids or whatever. Just go out, earn your money, and come home. And it, like you say, it's only been the last few years, I think, that it's gradually been opening up, and people being prepared to talk about things. And
Yeah.
I've learned a lot just from talking it from everyone here, for my own mental health, and talking to other people in here, and the fact that people have been very open and honest, and prepared to come on and talk about what's going on,
Mhm.
which is good. I think it's definitely an
Yeah.
improvement,
Yeah.
and hopefully it'll carry on.
Yeah. And I think even just the last couple of years for myself, like, I
Yeah,
think, you know, have I only become really comfortable in myself to actually kind of say to people, oh no, I'm
yeah,
struggling, or I'm doing this, or I'm trying that to improve my mental health and my mental well-being, and I'd say these were things I spoke to other people about for decades, but only very recently have I started being very open to
yeah,
myself as well, and to others. And actually, and also, I think in the last couple of years as well, I've actually been more open-minded again as well, to try things myself, to try and cope, or when things have been tough, or try and improve my mental well-being. But like I say, as I say,
is there any particular sort of strategies or any particular things you do to help your mental health?
um, I mean, I think things were very low a couple of years ago, and I even tried things like things I never really thought about in the past.
Yeah,
Being a northern, male, and things like that. Things that were never really um, in my sort of headspace to think about. Like, but
yeah,
things like I started, like, I suppose one that a lot of people do is like even like meditation and things, but it never worked
yeah.
for me at all. And then I tried transcendental meditation, TM.
Okay, tell
Yeah,
me a little about.
yeah,
I know what meditation is. What's transcendental? Is that when you get yourself into some sort of trance, or
yes and no. It is kind of just meditation, actually. Like, it's just
right?
it's actually more just um it's the one David Lynch is very involved in, actually.
Okay,
David
right.
Lynch is very much
Yeah,
yeah, there's quite a lot of artists, actually. A lot of artists and singers, and are kind of yeah, are into it. But it's kind of the reason why it appealed to me is because I always found it hard to kind of clear my mind with meditation, and for it
yeah,
to slow down. My
yeah.
brain doesn't work that way at all. But with transcendental meditation, that's not necessary. It's not all
Okay,
about clearing your mind. It's like encouraged for thoughts to come as fast as they want. You know,
right.
um, you know, you have kind of almost like a sort of chant that you do inside your head. But any thoughts that come is okay, actually. So it's not about kind of clearing your mind and trying to kind of slow down, in a sense. That doesn't actually happen though. But it's
It's almost
you
the
know
opposite. Then it's almost encouraging thoughts and
Yeah, they do. It's
rapid fire.
just not really kind of almost like frowned upon. It's not almost like yeah, you're not almost supposed to stop it. It's a natural thing to happen. So it just worked for me a lot more, and
Okay.
it certainly did work. It really did. It really, really did work for me, actually, at a time which I was very low. Interesting enough, I've stopped it though, actually, which is what they always say you shouldn't do, because they say you
Yeah.
should always do it when things are even good, because then when things aren't good,
Yeah.
you're you're in the practice of it and everything else. But
It's
maybe
like
my
anything,
chaotic
isn't it?
lifestyle doesn't.
Yeah, it's like anything. It's keeping it going, isn't it?
Mhm.
And like before lockdown, my mate had opened a gym. I was going to the gym, doing a lot of weights and stuff, and then lockdown came and that stopped, and we're doing a bit at home. But you get out of practice of anything that is good for your mental health, and
Mm.
it's positive. Like you say, you've got to try and carry it on, and it's almost like a lifestyle choice, isn't it? If you're going to do it, you've got to carry it on.
Yeah, yeah,
But the fact is now, that it does work for you. So if you got to that point again, you can say, right, I'm going to go back to this because I know this works, and hopefully it will help you through.
yeah. I would definitely recommend people to have a look at it. Actually, it did work for me. TM, like, it did. It was quite interesting. It was also it was interesting to learn,
Yeah,
about it. And even that side of it, I think, occupies your mind, actually learning something new.
yeah,
Something interesting and new, even if it's not something you're going to do forever. But it's occupying my mind at the time. But I think sometimes you replace things for other things as well. Like, I do a lot of boxing now. Boxing's
okay, yeah,
my addiction now. Like, so
yeah, yeah,
I'm boxing most days, like every day. Like, and so I tend to do that now. But that is that really, really helps.
yeah. And
With my
I think what
mental
you're saying
health.
is very true, isn't it? About learning something, and it's through doing what we've done through Twitch and building up our community and getting people onto streaming. I think for a lot of people it was good because right, okay, I DJ. I'm now going to learn how to stream. I'm now going to learn, how to do this particular thing in DJing, or do this particular thing. And again, it's just like occupying the mind and keeping yourself busy. And I think we probably started talking about this before the show, but it's having that next thing to look forward to.
Yeah.
And certainly with streaming and the DJing, what we do online, it's like, okay, so you invite someone, right, come and do a set next week for this. And you're like, okay, right, I've now got to do a set next week. Keeps you occupied for that week, thinking, what am I going to play? What am I going to do? And not pushing the bad stuff out, because, you've got to go through that bad stuff as well.
Yeah.
But it just hopefully balances it all out. And that's why music again and DJing I think is quite important, because and especially being able to do it from home.
Yeah.
All of us having been locked down for so long, it was nice being able to sort of come out and do it. But yeah, okay, well, yeah, transcendental meditation sounds interesting. I'll definitely
it's worth looking into actually. Yeah,
see what it's all about.
Yeah, that's the one that the Beatles were kind of famously into transcendental meditation. That's when they went to India, and so yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So I don't know if it's the same person, but Mad JC19 has changed his but he's saying, don't know if you intended, but your radio mixes, especially the dancehall, has always helped me on down days.
Cool.
So there you go. That's good.
Yeah.
And I love reggae, and the last mix we had, we'll get to it in a minute, because I always ask my guests to choose 3 records, and I think I've sent you a message, and you're going to do me a mix at some point when you got a bit more time.
Definitely.
But there's a 45-day uplifting mix where basically I just said to me, right, just do 45 minutes of 45s that uplift, and the last one is by DJ the Catalyst, and she's done a brilliant uplifting reggae mix, and positive vibes, and good intentions, and good message, and all the rest of it. So there definitely has to be something to be said, I think, for reggae music. So let's talk about that. What is it about reggae that you like and that you appreciate? Might be a difficult question.
Yeah. I don't know. When I think of sort of reggae or Jamaican music, it's kind of, I know some people like different subgenres of it, like some people like roots or just dub or dancehall. I must admit, I'm right across the board. I'm a big fan of
same.
For this rock steady, or it was kind of my big love when I was younger was like 90s dancehall. That really I became really quite obsessed with that, because I suppose you'll probably remember as well, that was like that kind of almost went hand in hand with 90s boom bap, didn't it, at the time? You had all the great dancehall records, and then the collaborations of the Mad Lions and KRS Ones and Mega Bantons and things. So yeah, but I think it's just it's just a vibe, just the rhythms really, actually, and the message as well. In a lot of the music, it's that rebel music, isn't it? It's rebel music, and which I'm Scottish. I'm Scottish, so it's gonna go.
But it's good, obviously, that there's so much good Scottish reggae, like you say. You mentioned Mungo's Hi-Fi, and that there's so many good artists as well, and sound systems. That's the other thing. It's sort of a sound system for reggae music. Definitely. Cool. We've touched on the uplifting thing, and I always ask my guests to pick out sort of 3 45s that lift their spirits. And I know you've got some there. So let's start with the first one then. So what's the first one you've picked out?
I'm a bit disorganised. I'm only going to pick 3 though, so I'll just pick 3 out of it.
This is what guests always say. They always say this is the hardest. I do another show where guests get to choose and play 7 records. They normally play 10, but this is the hardest one.
This is the hard one, actually.
3 records.
Actually, strangely, to touch on it, this was the record that I was talking about that I played at the first gig that I did.
Yeah. That's a classic. That's a classic.
91 this came out, actually. So and that's the candle wax that was all spilled over. So that was what I played in when I was 16, I think it was. Like, so and this is still a great song, obviously, Rebel MC, with Barrington Levy and Tenor Fly. And that was the first time I think I ever saw, I think the first time I ever saw Tenor Fly on TV was probably maybe with these guys. And I think it might have been, what was it was the AIDS charity at the time, wasn't it? The Red Hot, and there was quite a lot of events. There was an album and things like that. I remember being young and seeing, a concert on TV, and they were performing on it, actually. So this was cool as well to because obviously I ended up working with Tenor Fly quite a lot as well. We did a number of songs together, and this always makes me very happy. A good
I was going to say, it must be strange thinking back, to your 16-year-old playing that, not knowing that many years later you're going to be working with Tenor-Fly.
Yeah. It's quite mind blowing actually. Because his music definitely came in and out in my life as well. Because he worked with so many. When you think of all the different genres he released music in, and from his jungle stuff to his dancehall to and then I suppose with the freestylers, and Congo Natty and just everybody actually, but for some reason everything that he did I loved, and it kept coming back into my life every couple of years. I'm like, oh, what's this new thing? Oh, great, I love that as well. So it's
such a unique voice as well.
I was going to say, isn't it?
Deep, unique voice.
Yeah, one of the best voices ever, actually, isn't it?
As soon as he starts, it's him. And that's
that's
really.
But Rebel MC. I think go for that one. That's
Yeah, and the good thing about that is it's still, I think quite a few of us have probably already got it, but it's still quite a reasonably priced in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Probably easy to find, actually,
Yeah.
Trying to think of other ones. There's maybe Gil Scott Heron.
Okay, yeah.
Johannesburg.
Yeah.
I got, that wasn't it wasn't a song that was really on my radar for a long time with Gil Scott Heron, actually, even though I would have called myself a big fan of his. It wasn't one of my favourite songs, but through time, actually, it probably is my favourite song by him, actually. And it's quite a cool little 7-inch cover, I think, as well, actually.
Yeah, we do love our picture sleeves for sevens.
Isn't it?
That is nice.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah,
my wife was born in Johannesburg, so I have been to Johannesburg as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So there's a little link there, but no, that's Gil Scott Heron. Yeah, he's a I think, unfortunately, he passed away quite recently, didn't he? But I think we had tickets for like a rescheduled gig in London, and unfortunately he passed away just before that, so I didn't quite get to see him. Which is a bit gutting, really. But
I was the same, actually. I never saw Gil in concert, actually, but it was one of those ones, wasn't it, where you kick yourself, because I remember him playing Edinburgh quite a number of times over the years, and I don't know why I didn't go.
It's one of those, isn't it? I think as you get older, you're like, right, okay, someone's playing, I need to go and see him in a morbid way, because this might be the last time you get to see him, and you just never know what's going to happen. So,
you're right,
definitely get out and see live music if you can, whenever you can.
I don't know what else I've got here. Let me see. I've got some soul records. I think sometimes I also quite like this one as well. It's Al Green.
Okay. Which one is that one?
Back Up Train, 7-inch.
Yeah.
Do you know that one? Yeah.
That's good.
It's the one where they've spelled his name wrong as well. They've got an E at the end of Green. It was free with was it Hotline Music Journal, newspaper of the day. I think this is Al Green's first release, actually.
So it was free with a newspaper?
Yeah. I think I could be wrong if there's people who are on this.
Someone later will come and chat. It wasn't this, mate. It was something else.
Exactly. I'm opening a can of worms here. I think I was told that this was his first record because it was free with a Hotline Music Journal newspaper, and they spelt his name wrong, so he's got his GREENE. And so it's quite cool, actually. But it's actually one of my favourite songs by him. So aside from all the nerdiness of the record, actually, it's
That's great. Well, that's a great selection of 3 records.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to find where we're going to go next after this, because with Twitch we sort of raid out and go to another channel. But tell us what you've got coming up. What sort of projects have you got lined up for the next sort of foreseeable?
Let me think. We have a couple remixes coming out for various artists. Okay. We have a new single coming out actually on Uncommon Records, the Jungle Drum and Bass label. So it's a bit more of a darker kind of jungle song, actually. Like as far as vinyl and things goes, I'd say the unreleased Love Tears Apart dub is out. It's available right now, actually, on Bandcamp.
Scotty's put the link up already.
Oh, cool! Yeah, so, I think there's maybe only about 40 copies left or something. But it's out in December. But if you buy it off Bandcamp, you get it in November, so you'll get it early. Yeah, so it's just kind of working on a few projects. There's also something else that I'm working on, which I'm quite excited by, which is it's kind of that thing about giving back a wee bit again as well.
Yeah.
And it's I'm going to be starting how would you say it? It's going to be doing interviews with people actually.
Okay. Cool.
Sort of it's kind of going to be interviewing people from the kind of sort of, you could say, the club, electronic, bass music, sound system, hip hop scenes, and kind of just doing interviews with artists really actually, doing like half-hour interviews with people. So we've got the first 3 or 4 lined up to record in November. So
brilliant.
so that's something new that's going to
Have you done interviews before?
No.
It's a learning curve. It's fun. It is definitely fun. But yeah, it's just have lots of questions prepared. I think it'd be nice. And obviously it depends on who you're interviewing. I think pretty much all my guests have been quite chatty. You know, they're happy to talk about it. There's been one who's quite a little bit shy, and then he said to me afterwards, God, that's the most I've ever spoken on Twitch, because he DJs, but he very rarely speaks on the mic. So yeah, just do it. I think my advice would be do a little bit of research as much as you need to, and then have a few questions ready, so that if there is any sort of gaps or pauses, you can like jump in and sort of keep the conversation going. That's probably a little bit of my advice I'd give.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'll definitely be hitting you up for some pointers before I do it. But it's exciting for myself, and I think it's that it does feel more exciting now actually to kind of try and put a spotlight on artists that I'm really into, rather than talking about myself all the time. When it comes to music, I find it more interesting now to kind of talk to other people. And, I suppose it's something that we all see a wee bit, which is there's not as many avenues for artists to talk anymore, I don't think. Even though we've got social media, they put up their own posts, but there's not really, there's not the same magazines or even radio stations. I kind of feel it's there's not as many avenues unless you're very established, but some of the very established artists I know, I kind of feel that.
Even then, I don't think they do huge interviews. I mean, sort of magazine interviews. I mean, I don't know. I do pick up the odd magazine, but it's very rare I'm going to pick up a magazine and read like a 6-page interview with someone.
Yeah.
If I want to, I'll go and watch it. But like you said, there isn't many.
No.
I can't think of many.
And that's it. I think for some like my favorite artists, or just it's not going to be people I all know either. So it'll be like a bit like it'll be people that I've never met before, but I'm a fan of, and it'll be up and coming people. Giving them a like I say, an avenue to talk about their music, and for us all to find out more about them. But then also some of the established artists that I really like. I think to myself, wait a minute, I don't think I've ever seen an interview with you. I don't actually know that much about you at all, and so it's kind of it's going to go right across the spectrum really. But it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
It will be great, because it's when you get into this format, and it's also a lot easier now to do it. That's the thing, like with you, I sent you a link, you click on the link, and then we're chatting, because we've all got used to this sort of Zoom culture from the pandemic and all the rest of it. So, you don't need to go to a fancy studio or a big broadcast facility or anything like that as well, which helps, because people can do it from their own home. They don't have to go anywhere, switch their laptop on, and then boom, you're sort of chatting to someone and learning, and you'll be amazed what you learn about yourself. That's the other thing I'd say. Chatting to other people, you learn a hell of a lot about yourself, and memories. You suddenly you start talking about something like, oh yeah, I remember when I did that, or I did this, and all the rest of it. So that's also a really positive thing that comes out of talking to other people.
It's also thinking as it's that back to the thing of mental health and well-being as well. It's also thinking about ways to keep your passion about music alive, without feeling like you have to be, well, for myself personally, I don't necessarily want to be out until 5 o'clock in the morning every night.
No.
In clubs and things anymore, so my body can't take that anymore. So I'm thinking about the next chapter of how to keep progressing, and I might not want to make music forever, but I still want to be involved in music.
Yeah, definitely. It's been great. Let me just set the raid, and we'll go. There's a. Sorry, I've typed it wrong. Give me 2 secs. Yeah, I think that's that. It's an interesting raid. It's called Slow Mo Mondays, and basically, I'm DJing on it later on at 11. But you basically play 45s at alternate speeds. So you play them at 33, which sounds ridiculous. But if you think of a dub tune, and then you slow it down a little bit, it becomes deeper because of obviously the bass frequencies and everything else, and a different sort of slight vibe to it. And it certainly helped me in terms of just slowing me down for an hour. I'm thinking, right, okay, I'm just going to chill for an hour, just play slow music. So it sounds bizarre, but there is some method behind the madness.
Yeah, it's cool.
There is some method behind it. But yes, we're going to go see In Charge. She's a couple in front of me before the raid gets to me later. But Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for the great music, the great chat, the great insights, and thank you for being a guest. It's been
thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah,
it's been great. So we'll raid out. But if you hang on there for a minute, we'll have a quick chat afterwards. But take it easy, everyone. Thank you for tuning in.
Cheers.